Exercise is a single acute bout of bodily exertion that requires an expenditure of energy above resting level and that in most but not all cases results in voluntary movement. In this video, we will learn the systems of our organism to produce this needed energy. The chemical energy gained by food is stored as ATP, adenosine triphosphate. ATP is composed of a carbon-nitrogen base called adenine, a 5-carbon sugar called ribose, and 3 inorganic phosphates. ATP is like an energy currency. Just like money, we pay an amount of ATP in order to produce work. The depletion of ATP produces the needed chemical energy to generate mechanical work and cope with an exercise bout. It is termed ATP hydrolysis. Hydrolysis is a chemical process in which a substance is split into simpler compounds by addition of water. When a phosphate is removed, the remaining compound is adenosine diphosphate, ADP, and when 2 phosphates are removed, more energy becomes available and ATP becomes adenosine monophosphate, AMP. The ATP energy reaction is reversible. The addition of inorganic phosphate to ADP to synthesize ATP is termed phosphorylation. Skeletal muscle at rest contain around 6 millimole per kilogram and it is sufficient for around 3 seconds of maximal contraction. The rate of hydrolysis of ATP during maximal exercise may be as high as 1 kilogram per minute. ATP is constantly being hydrolyzed and phosphorylated. ATP can be resynthesized through 3 different pathways, and these depict the energy systems of our organism to regenerate ATP and produce work. The first energy system we will examine is the anaerobic lactic system. As its name suggests, the presence of oxygen is not required, and there is no raise of the concentration of lactic acid. It occurs in the cytoplasm of our cells, and there are 2 ways to resynthesize ATP. One is the addition of one phosphoryl group to ADP from ADP, resulting in ATP and AMP, and the second by interaction of ADP with creatine phosphate, also designated as phosphocreatine. Phosphocreatine donates its phosphoryl group to ADP, producing ATP, while being degraded into creatine. Skeletal muscles at rest contain around 20 millimole per kilogram of phosphocreatine and around 12 millimole per kilogram of creatine. The maximal rate of ATP resynthesis from phosphocreatine is approximately 2.6 millimole per kilogram per minute and occurs within 2 seconds of the onset of maximal contraction. Phosphocreatine stores used to regenerate ATP in a working muscle will be depleted in 15 to 30 seconds. The anaerobic lactic system is the fastest source of ATP resynthesis, but won't be able to support exercise bouts of longer duration. In order to keep producing energy for our working muscles, our organism uses all 3 major food nutrients: fats, carbohydrates and proteins, utilized in free fatty acids and glycerol, amino acids and glucose respectively. Free fatty acids and glycerol through beta oxidation, amino acids through oxidative deamination or transamination, and glucose through aerobic glycolysis and its transformation to pyruvate will be converted in acetyl coenzyme A. Acetyl coenzyme A is a central converting substance in the metabolism of fats, carbohydrates and proteins in order for the metabolism to proceed to the next stages of the Krebs cycle, the electron transport system and the oxidative phosphorylation, and produce ATP aerobically in the mitochondria of the cell, presenting the aerobic system for which to operate, as its name suggests, the presence of oxygen is essential. This energy system would require more time to regenerate ATP, leading to formation of 32 ATP, and because there is a large storage of substances used as fuel in our organism, it can support us producing ATP for up to several hours. But glycolysis, metabolizing glucose, can also be conducted anaerobically in the cytoplasm of the cell, before glucose is converted in pyruvate to enter the cell's mitochondria, presenting the latter energy system we will learn, the anaerobic lactic energy system. Through this pathway, the breakdown of glucose to lactate will produce 2 ATP per 1 molecule of glucose, and as already mentioned, results in formation of lactate. In another video, we will examine in more detail the lactate, its role, and the misconceptions around it. The anaerobic lactic energy system, through anaerobic glycolysis, produces only 2 net molecules of ATP per 1 molecule of glucose, and raises the acidity of working muscle fibers, resulting in this feeling of muscles burning and us tiring up, leading to conclusion of our exercise bout. However, in cells lacking mitochondria and/or adequate oxygen supply, anaerobic glycolysis is the sole process by which such cells can produce ATP from glucose. Additionally, in maximally contracted skeletal muscle, anaerobic glycolysis is a quick and relatively efficient means of meeting short-term energy goals in rapidly contracted skeletal muscle cells, with energy demands exceeding what can be produced by the aerobic energy system alone. Furthermore, anaerobic glycolysis allows for the more rapid production of ATP, since it is approximately 100 times faster than the aerobic pathway. All 3 energy systems are cooperating to regenerate ATP needed to proceed producing work, being active simultaneously, with one being the dominant one according to the exercise bout's load, duration, and intensity. We can imagine them as 3 collaborators, having the task to move a particular load of stones from one point to another. According to how much is the load, how fast they must carry it, and how much time they would need, each of them is accordingly burdened in order to complete their task in the most effective manner in top performance. For bouts lasting less than 30 seconds, the anaerobic lactic energy system is the dominant one, presenting us with ATP rapidly to accumulate maximal contraction. The energy production for maximal exercise bouts lasting more than 30 seconds and up to 1 minute is dominated by the anaerobic lactic energy system, producing ATP rapidly without needing oxygen supply and utilizing glucose, a substance with larger reserves, being limited in duration by the fact that it raises the acidity in our muscles, making us feel our muscles burning and tire up to exhaustion. The dominant energy system for bouts lasting more than 1 minute and even for several hours is the aerobic energy system, producing ATP for prolonged time in the cell's energy factories, the mitochondria, relying on both free fatty acids and glycerol, amino acids and glucose, having been converted in acetyl coenzyme A.